Hey, good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
How the heck are you doing?
Mark, you go first.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us today. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Oh,
I was so happy with our conversation yesterday that Mark was able to join us, and we're going to explain why here in just a second. But he's kind of saving our bacon a little bit here, I
We're in trouble.
I don't know if trouble's the right word for it, but hey, good morning to everyone online. It's good to see everyone. And yes, Mark, we had our roar. Glad to see that you got that in, as always. But it's good to see Simon. Good morning, welcome, Aaron. It's good to see you as well. Jesse, always nice to see you. Donald, oh, can't forget you. We're heading up. We're going down the wrong way, or we're going up,
think.
not down. Excited to have everyone here. This is a topic. Data flows is something that I have been a huge fan of for a very long time because I truly believe that uh, you know that the people that work with data have some of the best insights and knowledge about that data and know how to work with it and know how to leverage it and use it. And the fact that we could give people with good business knowledge a tool that's easy for them to use, and then they can, like, initially they just brought it into Power BI, but now it's into Fabric and they could do all these different things. I just think this is absolutely fantastic. And Mark, you come from a Power BI background, or I'm sorry, you come
Mhm.
from a business background and it
Mhm.
got started in Power BI, right?
Yeah, I'm an accountant at heart. Started with Excel, worked in Excel for many years, looking for that next step. Found Power BI.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But we one of the big reasons that we are here today, though, is uh, we're working on. There's been a big tragedy has happened in Maui of forest fires or wildfires have basically devastated the entire place, and it's really a tragedy. So Kevin and I said, we really want to do something to help out. So we wanted to do a live stream to help raise money for Maui. So we've said, we're going to partner together. We're going to do a match on anything that is donated. Uh, so anything that comes in during this live stream, we're going to be doing a match on that. So I think we've got a little visual that we're going to have here. So, so anything you guys feel free to contribute. All of this money is going to go into the Maui Strong Fund. This is a fund. They're on the ground in Maui. They're actively giving and they're working with the various churches and community groups around the area to make sure that the necessary resources are getting in the hands of the people. And yeah, I saw some videos of them just yesterday of they're actually out in the community and helping out. So anything you can give during this live stream will be greatly appreciated. We will make sure, or we'll make sure that it goes into this fund where they spend every single penny of it on there. And clearly, this was a big hit from the community because we've already received our first donation. That number is now at 500. So we're at 500
Awesome.
or 1,500 that we're going to be donating so far. Hopefully, we can drive that number all the way up. Holy cow! I'm already starting to have to update my slides. So how wonderful is this?
thank, thank you,
thank
Donald,
Thank you,
for
Donald.
making me have to do math this morning with the 99-cent part.
Couldn't make it
Everybody
20.
keep doing that to mess me up. So
Oh, that's
well,
fantastic.
thanks a bunch, Donald.
Yeah. Uh, but more than that, though, I think one of the great reasons we're happy to have Mark here is, Mark, you have a special connection with Maui.
I do. I was really excited to see this pairing of the charity for Maui and the live stream. Um, I was born and raised on Oahu.
Mm.
Hawaii plays a very special part in my heart. My parents go back to the 50s living on Oahu. And I just know that community is just full of love and aloha. And for those that have been there, and reach out and get to know the community a little bit, you know that they're just full of that aloha spirit. And so anything that you can give, if you were able to be there in person, you would sense that love or that spirit of aloha, and you would get that tenfold back if you could be there. So I know that it's well appreciated, and I I appreciate just being on the stream. So thank you.
Oh, fantastic! And Mark, thank you for coming. And let's see if we can do something to raise some money for Hawaii. And Dal, you didn't do anything wrong. You donate here, and we'll make sure that it all gets over there. You don't have to worry about that at all.
Donating here is what helps us track what we're going to match to go over there. So
Yeah.
please
Yep.
start donating here. We want to see, get our phone lines ringing. Oh, that's an old one. Boy, I show my age on that one.
But we are here to talk more about. While we're going to be doing we are going to be raising money here. So please donate. We're going to be talking about Dataflows Gen2. Kevin, do you want to kind of like give us a rundown? What the heck is a Dataflow Gen2? Why is it important? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Dataflows Gen2, as the name kind of sounds, right? It's the next generation of data flows that you know and love from Power BI. So we start out with all that great M language that everybody has learned throughout the years and able to still use all that, all these techniques that we've seen before. Oh, now we're going to get into translations. Thanks, Simon. Yeah. Chris is going to have to go do his math now of how to Euros is pretty close 1-to-1. So I think we just figure that 1-to-1 right there. Anyways, yeah. So being able to do all the transformations that you're used to, having a bunch of connectors, right? So Chris, why don't you go ahead and bring up my screen?
Sure thing. Sorry.
And I believe we've kind of copied this or covered this once before, right? But you could see here's a decision guide on when to use a pipeline activity. If you remember, we covered pipelines in the last episode, so go out and find that if you want to see a little bit more about pipeline activity. But even with pipelines right now on the documentation, there's only about 30 plus connectors, to where Dataflow Gen2 is 150 connectors. And then Spark.
Oh, hang on. I don't know why your screen's not coming through, Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I was actually looking at my screen.
It's okay. Let's try another share. And maybe we need to switch our view here. Come on, computer.
Do you need me to stop and reshare?
I can see it on YouTube, but it's blurry.
Maybe I need
to interesting.
Okay, there it goes. I think it's starting to make its way through. Okay, there we are.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah. So as I was saying, oops, where'd it go? Oh, I have my mouse on the wrong screen. All right. So if we kind of look over here, sources, right? We have 30 plus connectors over on the pipeline activity, over 150 connectors on the Gen 2. So that to me is a big reason to go ahead and use Dataflow Gen 2s. The other big reason is, unlike Gen 1, is we could go ahead and store the data that we bring in into a lakehouse or a warehouse. Now, Donald has put a couple things out early because I was teasing a group that I run with or we work with on Thursdays about some things that we learned. And that's going to come up here in just a little bit, Donald. So I'm going to make you hold off just a little bit more on things that we found. Chris and I found the same things independently between lakehouse and warehouse. And I think I have one other surprise I forgot to bring up this morning. Anyways, so we have Dataflow Gen 2 can now also write to the Lakehouse, a SQL database, Azure Data Explorer, Azure Synapse Analytics. This is a little bit out of date, because as I just mentioned, we're able to set the destination now to a Fabric warehouse. So why that's not explicitly called out here, I don't know. I don't think that was around when we originally looked at Dataflow Gen 2 many episodes ago, but it's definitely there now with caveats. Couple good, one bad, maybe. Okay, so that is kind of to me the main reason to go ahead and think about Dataflow Gen 2, right? As we keep talking about, Fabric builds on the skill sets you already have. So if you already have Dataflow skill sets and are great at that, you have Dataflow Gen 1s out there, you could easily bring them into Dataflow Gen 2, right? If you have a lot of SQL skills, data warehousing, right? But you got to figure out in the data warehouse how to get the data in there. Data flows, copy activities, work well for that. So again, and if you know Spark or Python, then you go to the notebook experience. What do you guys think, Mark? Any other reasons why to use Dataflow Gen 2?
Well, as you guys know, I've been heavy into learning PySpark, and just this last week, I was trying to attach to an API URL, and learned from you guys this week that that there wasn't that path wasn't necessarily ready to go with the gateway. So you guys advised me to go to Dataflow Gen 2, and that started me down an interesting path.
Yeah, so that was, and I can't remember where we originally had that discussion. Was that on one of our Saturday morning learning sessions?
It was SML. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we get another group together every Saturday morning. And Mark presented out his problem. We kind of talked through it and we said, hey, let's go ahead and try what I think you're going to show. Try it through a Dataflow Gen 2, and let's see how that works. And he had some really good success. So I think, Mark, if you want to.
Well, hang on. Before Mark's got the advanced use case, we're going to get over to that. So, Mark, you can start your screen share and everything there. But let's run people through some of the stuff and some of the challenges that they might have inside of the data flow. So I'm going to share my screen because it's not without issue right now. Okay, so we are in the beginning deployment, and so I wanted to just hey, create a data set using Dataflows Gen 2. And so I did your classic thing. I went in and I have a file. Where's my link here? Oh my gosh, no, I forgot where to grab the link on it. Here. Why can't I think of the link? Where to grab the link? It's always when you're presenting, all of a sudden your brain just drops out of your head.
Every Friday morning.
Right. Yeah. But I grabbed the link for my file. I headed into Power BI. I went to create a data flow, and actually I have it right over here. So I'm just gonna grab my file right here. My file link, copy, and I went and I said, okay, hey, let me create a new data flow. And so I went in to create it. And actually, no, I apologize. I went, oh, wait, this is the wrong one. This is your regular data flow. It's not the Gen 2 because I was in my Power BI experience. Let me zoom in so you can see that, right? If you're in your Power BI experience, you're just going to see the default data flow here is your regular data flow. Okay. So you have to go over to show all, and then under data factory, you can find the Dataflow Gen 2 preview. Okay. So I went in and I said, okay, I'm going to want to load it from Excel because it's already in the cloud. I don't want to deal with any gateway issues because I just want to test to make sure that it works. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to import it. But I know that if I try to import from Excel, it's going to cause me some problems. So I'm going to go to get data, and I'm going to say my web page because this is your little trick, right? so that you don't have to do this, right? So you can um, make sure that you're able to authenticate and pull it in from the SharePoint version. And I said next. Well, actually, this is now. I think it's going to work. Yeah. Oh no, here it is. Okay, so I got this error. An exception occurred. The module name HTML has been disabled. What the heck? Okay, so maybe the issue is inside my organizational content. So, okay, go in, or authenticate. Oh, I see. It's not authenticated. Let me sign in. Go to sign in. A little pop-up window. All right, so this pop-up window was breaking earlier today, so it was not working anytime I try it. So when I'd sign in, it just wouldn't work, and it wouldn't grab my credentials. There we go. Same thing kept happening no matter what I did. Is I'd get these authentication errors that I couldn't get around, and so I said, okay, if this isn't working here, how else could I go about doing this? And so yes, I want to close this. Let me try to create a general data flow, just a regular data flow. Is there just an issue in my system? Do I have an issue? So I said, okay, I'm going to create a new data flow. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to do the web page. I'm going to paste it in. It's going to be my organizational account. We'll edit it. We'll sign in. My sign in popped up like last time. Okay, it's in there. Go to next. Crap, same error. All right, well, what is going on here? I said, so what I did is I cheated. I found an existing data flow that was working, and I grabbed the entire M query. So I said, all right, let's go in and try it again. So I said, add new tables, and I wanted to have a blank, so a blank query. So I'm going to start with a blank query, and I'm going to paste in an existing data flow. This I know is up and running. It works. So I should be good to go here. Now I'm going to choose my gateway. Enterprise. Oh. I'm going to choose my gateway. That's down on the bottom. I'm going to hit next. As this is going to authenticate.
Well, hold on one second.
Yeah.
So where this sits on a SharePoint?
Yes.
But you still needed to go through a gateway?
You don't. Yeah, you shouldn't have to. But for whatever reason, it makes you choose a gateway when you're doing that connection.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most of the time going to SharePoint, I haven't, I think all the time I haven't used a gateway. So, okay.
Maybe this is a bug. I don't know why that is a thing. But when I put this in, I was able to get this up and running, and I'm actually going to close it because I already have it up and running.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually able to create a data flow, and we'll filter down. Do you guys just love these new filters for content? I am. I mean, when we could start to have all sorts of stuff out here, this ability to filter down on stuff is just fantastic.
I do, but we still got to go vote on the idea for getting folders. I'd rather have folders than the filter, and I'd rather have a folder that I could put in like all my notebooks or all my, data flows or whatever, right? And then I could have a folder that I could hide these extra objects that Dataflows produces for us, right? Because there's 4 new objects that come out every single time. But yes, I do got to get muscle memory onto that filter because I haven't thought about using it a whole lot.
Oh, I use it all the time. It's great. But okay, so I created that. I went in and I dropped that in, and I was able to create my Dataflow Gen1s. Well, I said, okay, can I do the same thing with a Dataflow Gen2? Right. So that's what this is. I just went in and actually let me go back. I just said yes. I need new, show all. Give me a Dataflow Gen2. It's going to run me through kind of the same experience. You notice that it didn't take me right to the get data screen. It took me to this screen. So I had to go to get data and blank query in order to get that same experience. So I pasted this in and I chose my gateway and hit next. Now it's going to ask me again to configure the connection. And yes, you're going to use that connection. And this is going to be the organizational account. Connect. And you'll find that this ends up finishing. Now, you can, if you could kind of look down here, it does say that you could publish this right now. But the problem with publishing it right now is you don't have any data destination. So I don't know where the heck it's going. Is it just going into like the bucket or something like that? I don't know. But if you hit that destination, you can see that there are a number of different options. There's Lakehouse. You can send it into Azure SQL Database, Accusto, or the data warehouse. This, I think, is the biggest key to why Dataflows Gen2 are big or a big deal, because this means Dataflows Gen2 starts to become a scalable enterprise solution. So it's not just an individual that publishes it, but it's something that an organization can publish, right? So this is up. I hit my lake house. It's going to ask me, yes, I want it to be in a lake house. Next. And then I have to go in and choose which lake house I'm going to be sending it into. And then I'm going to have to name the table that I'm sending it to, right? So I'm not actually going to do it because I already have it all set up. But you would enter it, you'd hit next, and it would go through your classic build. Actually, you know what? We're going to do that. So lake house, next. Just so we could see this get done quick. VentureWorks, demo 1, next. Because it actually, this does bring up a good thing. We have some real great features that come in here. We could say, what is going to happen to this? Is this new data that we're going to come in and just truncate and load, or are we going to append the data on top of each other, right? So this is a big deal. This is something that wasn't a thing before. So that, really happy to that we get this capability in here. Oh, and here, look at this. Here's Learn Microsoft Fabric with Will. Thank you, Will, for your super chat. If you guys haven't seen Will's content, do check it out. I actually watched a number of his videos in preparation for today, so do check out his stuff. All right. All right, and then I hit save settings, and it's gonna run, and it's gonna we hit publish. Oops. Again, publish is down below here. Right, publish, and it's going to run, and it's going to do its little thing. Now, Kevin, you've loaded into the lake house, right?
I tried loading into the warehouse and into the lake house. And I first tried, this is what hit my panic yesterday, because of course I wait to the last minute to prep everything. Kind of makes it fun. But yeah, so I was going into let me get rid of the screen that I have up. I saw Fernando put a thing on there. Click the arrow next to publish, right? That just gives you an option to publish now or publish later. There's not much that's there. So here, let me get back to that. Right, we could see. Right, that's just all that does is you could publish now, which is going to save it and everything, and it's going to try to run it, or publish later, which is going to save it, but I don't think it's going to run it. But what I have here is in this workspace, I got to close out of this. So the first one that I tried is I was going, remember I have this Contoso database that has 10 million rows. And that's the first thing that I tried yesterday is using a Dataflow Gen2, just like we used pipelines last week, to bring in all of that data. And so I have this data flow that I was bringing in every single table. And you can see this doesn't have the little red mark next to it like the other one does. And because I ended up fixing it. It failed at first, and I kept trying to figure out why, and it was failing on all my large tables. So in this one, I'm only doing the top 10,000 rows on each one of my large tables, and I'm able to get it to run. So then I created another Dataflow Gen2 that was just my customer table, and I think that has 1.4 million rows into it. And you could see I'm not able to get that to run. And if we look at the problem, it comes up with a generic kind of error, write database from table output, it failed. If we click on that, it doesn't give me anything really indicating that it's having issues with the number of rows. So it was a little bit of experimenting that I found out it was because of the number of rows, which really disappointed me. And that's when we were talking over on Twitter, and Mark was saying, "Hey, he had his stuff working better, so that's what he's going to talk about here in a little bit." So I said, "Hey, maybe you need to come on because you need to save my bacon." Again, I like bacon. That's going to be my theme today. So, anyways, then I went back and I said, "Well, let me try the same thing into a lake house." And this Dataflow Gen2 is only bringing in my large tables, which is going to be customer and my order rows. And customer, again, has like 1.4 million. Order rows has 10 million. And I published this. Let me just close out of it. Ran it into my lake house. No issue at all.
That's great.
Right? Yeah. So it was really kind of interesting to me that your Dataflow Gen2 would have a different performance profile going into a lake house versus going into a warehouse. So you're going to want to be aware of that. Hopefully that, I'm sure that's something that they're going to fix. It's something I'm going to report here in a little bit, make sure that, they understand or they see what's going on. The other thing I wanted to show, which I didn't bring up to you guys this morning, excuse me.
Kevin and his tricks.
Yeah, well, this one I just kind of stumbled upon. What is it that we've kind of talked about and said, hey, be careful, and in a way I kind of didn't like it, right? But because of the Parquet format, remember, we haven't been able to have spaces in our column names, right? So when I was going through and doing the Dataflow Gen2, I expected a mapping page to come up that it would allow me to rename my columns. And I noticed it didn't have that. Unlike, we kind of saw that when we were doing the driven exercise, the template exercise from pipelines last week. And I said, well, what's going to happen? So I went ahead and just let it run. And look at what we have here. Can you see it?
The spaces worked.
We have
That's
spaces
amazing.
in, let me get a better, sorry about that. Should I use Control-2 or Control? We have spaces in our names. And so while Chris was just talking, I did go out here, went into, like if I go into my query mode here, and actually, where was it? Oh, I could come here, say new table. It's going to give me a table template. And if I use my brackets, and I go column 1 with space, close out my bracket, we're going to see that this query will run successfully, or this DDL statement. And in just a second here, this will refresh. So I learned this, about warehouses while we were looking at the Dataflow Gen2, right? Warehouses now support column names with spaces, which is great. stumbled upon that yesterday. But I think if we want to jump back to Dataflow Gen2, right? And Chris, I just want to kind of mention, you stumbled onto the same problem with data warehouse trying to load in. I think you said you think that the source you have, which was AdventureWorks, has maybe 60,000 rows. And
Yeah,
has that?
I am actively trying to load 60,000 rows from a Dataflow Gen2 that I've run into the lakehouse 3 times sub-minute, right? Like it just flows right in, and into the data warehouse. It's been running since, well, for the last 75 minutes.
Yeah.
It's been running.
And that's what I found too, is it would run for a really long time, and then sooner or later it'll come back with that message that you see. So you might have it by the end of this live stream, you might not. It was really, really, yeah, it was disappointing that it, we're not going to be able to use them to get a large amount of data into warehouses yet, because we're in preview yet.
I wager that it's just a matter of time, right? So, but these are some common patterns, right? So we just showcased like how you can use data flows from like an Excel file, right? That you have on SharePoint, or from a SQL database. I was showing on-prem. Kevin, you were talking about in the cloud, right?
Yeah, mine is up in the cloud, right? So I didn't have to use a gateway. It was able to just connect through very easily once I just put in. It was the same connection experience that we showed last week. What I was kind of surprised is that even though I had the same database across different workspaces that I was connecting to, I don't get a list of connections coming up that I set up before. So maybe that's another thing to put on ideas, or have them, come out. I don't know if it would show up. It didn't even seem like it would show up if I tried it again in the same workspace. So I'm a little kind of concerned about that. It would be nice to show, hey, here's all the connections you already have, so I don't have to think about setting new ones up. I think things like that are coming, so that maybe one person on the team that has the passwords or the access or whatever, and be able to share those type of things out. Hopefully things like that are coming.
Yeah, I think they've been talking about that for a while, about creating an experience around that. I would imagine we're going to see something inside of Fabric now that it's there. A note on mine is that I did have to upgrade my gateway server to the August version of the gateway in order to make this work. That's a big call out. If you're trying to do this on any previous version, it's not going to work. But all of your common patterns, like a file online, on-prem server, or a cloud server, is something we've been able to do. But I think we have Mark has a more interesting case here.
And before we jump there, can I just jump on that gateway thing? Because I find that interesting that you kind of confirm this. This is another conversation I've had going on with another person that listens to us. And that person was showing me that they even had the July 2023. They had their IT staff upgrade to July 2023. And now they started getting a message that they needed a newer version. And I was going, boy, I didn't even see that the August gateway version was announced. But then we started going out and looking at it and everything. There's a newer version than the July version. So even though you didn't see it in the blog post or anything, if you're trying to use an on-prem gateway, get it installed to the very latest version that you could download, which is the August 2023.
Yep. But Mark, you had a more interesting story, and can you preface the challenge that you were having, and then like what didn't work, where you went to get help, and then where you're at now?
Yeah, so I was on a mission to connect to an API and start pulling in our retail sales tables. And I got my hands on a customer table API and thought, I'm going to go to PySpark. I'm going to use notebooks to connect and continue learning PySpark. So I did so, and put that address in as my endpoint, And can I share my screen here?
Yeah,
I've just got a little visual about it.
sure.
Wrote my PySpark. You can see I've got the address referenced here. And every time I ran this, I would get some error related to timing out. And it would run. It didn't take long. It would run and it would error out. And my coworker David, who has some programming experience that I don't have, kept saying gateway. I don't understand because we don't have a gateway here. And Kevin and Chris confirmed that on Saturday SML, and they said we don't have gateway access yet on the notebooks, and they just said try Dataflows Gen2. So that was very encouraging to me. I came back to work Monday, was pleasantly surprised to see it as a data source in Dataflows Gen2 right there. Was able to choose that option, just simply entered the URL and my gateway into the process as it's loading. And I put some other...
Do you happen to have Zoom it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's a little
I don't have Zoom it, but I know how to
make that
roll
a little
in.
bit bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better?
Perfect. Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
So I was impressed with the ability to just put in this URL here. And I've got some additional steps down here to kind of mask my my columns. But when I did that, it ran. Now I can't zoom out. And you can see that table just came in. Now this is a JSON string. So there's some expanding going on. There's some flattening into this table, but nonetheless, I was excited to see that everything came in really quickly. I was able to post this. I set my destination to the lake house and was able to post that to the lake house. And then we wanted to start bringing in multiple tables because our customer table has 20,000 records in it. And so I started going down the path of wanting to add more pages. I will point out that I replicated this step this morning very early and did not realize until Chris told us that you can still select Gen 1. And I was wondering why this looked odd, but I replicated this step in Gen 1.
Okay.
But in Gen 2, I did pull my my Gil book out and
sure.
brushed up on list generate and created some variables here and functions where I was able to set my URL here and then concatenate that with my page number parameter there and connect it to a page variable that I've set down here. And I'm just trying to bring in the first page, right? And when I ran this code, I wouldn't even say I got a real error. I just got a message that popped up and it just simply said something went wrong. So I had nothing to really go search on. And when you run this, and you can run it for multiple pages, it will show in the preview. You'll see multiple pages in the preview. I could take this same M and put it into Power BI, into Power Query, close and apply, and it loads into Power BI.
So hang on. You're saying you could get it to work in the preview. You could get it to work in desktop, but you can't get it to work inside of the service?
In Dataflows Gen2. It would.
Oh, okay.
That was me for about a day.
So what did you do after you disappeared into the bushes?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I go into the bushes of Reddit, and I posted my question here. basically just what I'm saying. I'm trying to pull in multiple pages of a of an API in Dataflows Gen2, and Alex Powers was kind enough to respond. He worked with me a little bit through messaging, and he said, I've got a little image up here.
I don't have another meme for this. So.
Well,
You surprised us all enough with that first one.
yeah.
I literally thought, what the heck just happened?
So Alex writes me back and he says, I'm curious if it's failing due to the dynamic web address. And he says that he would change the concatenated URL string that I was using and move all of that into the web contents function of that M. So I've got two versions in here. This one's commented out, but I'll just point out that I tried to create this URL as a separate step or a separate variable, and I concatenated it here, and I had the page explicitly written out here. But then in my second version with the code that...
You might need to zoom in a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the difference with the second one is that I'm writing everything within this web contents function and not using the ampersand to concatenate, but using this query statement here. And something that he said in his post is, or his response was that this query statement will take care of that page variable, that question mark page handling in that URL.
Okay.
And so when I moved that concatenation and embedded it or nested it within this web contents, that made all the difference for me. And I was able to run that into preview, just like I was with the other two attempts. But now when I publish, it takes about a minute and a half, but you can see it starting up here. And I had seen many run attempts here where I would get that red error sign here or over here. But I was happy to see that this was finally working. I haven't brought in all 20,000 records yet. I may try that today, but I was experimenting in Power BI and it ran for a long time. So I understand that we're in preview. I'm expecting improvements there.
So one of the things, are you familiar with a software tool called Postman?
I'm not.
Okay, so Postman is a good way to help understand what's happening when you're calling APIs, right? And you know the performance could potentially be on your API side, right?
Okay.
But you know, again, I think it's also fair to assess that being on preview right now, it could be a little bit slow because I think you also said you're getting the same experience if you use desktop, right? That it's kind of slow,
Yeah,
right?
it
So, anyways, the other thing that you could do, like with understanding and using Postman, is understand that query parameter. It's a very common thing within calling APIs, especially in the mode that's called a get mode versus a post mode, where you're providing the query parameters. And what I used to see that you know, the reason you would have to change out to that more dynamic or providing that query option is I think the authentication utilizes what you put into that URL string. So when you change that URL string, even though the first part is the same, it thinks it needs I think it thinks it needs a different authentication. So it helps with that part as well, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I've seen, because Alex has helped me through some of this as well before, I think, when I was calling a couple different APIs. And that, you know, using Postman, listening to what Alex had to say and everything really helped me kind of understand calling a lot of APIs, because as I was telling you, there's ones that I'm calling that are cloud-based that I could do successfully through a Python notebook.
Hmm.
Since yours is on-prem, it has to hit this gateway.
Right.
And we have
Right.
Yeah, I think Amana is asking if it could be escape character or special characters in the parameter values that are properly handled by web contents.
Maybe, but I think it really has to do that for the authentication, and wants that URL variable to stay the same each time, right? And so that's
Okay.
good to have a variable to say. Some things have
okay.
like so I've been looking at how to get data from QuickBooks, right? And QuickBooks has a sandbox, so you have one URL to call to your sandbox version, and then you have a different URL to call to your production, right? So you just want to parameterize that so you could just not have to send it in, but it stays the same all the way through. Then the query part changes, and so that's that second part that Mark showed is here's the different query that I'm sending in, and your query changes when you're paging through your results. So APIs, when you read the documentation, they all have different limitations. Some will say they'll give you 1,000 rows, some will give you 10,000 rows, right? And you still, if you're getting more than that, you got to page through it. And that's what you're trying to do, is page through these results. So that query changes. You tell the query, hey, let's say it's 1,000. Now I want you to start at 1,001 and return me the next 1,000. And that's kind of what you're modifying each time on that new query looping through it.
So I was giving it a page max. I could put in page 3 or page 10 or what have you, and it would bring me back 50 records every time. But if I'm hearing you right, it has to do with how that URL is constructed, and somehow with the way that I had it, was it running into inconsistencies as it was paging through those URLs?
Well, because the way you were stringing the URL variable together, right? I don't think Dataflows likes that to change. But if you're now stringing the query together to be different, and what you're going to each API can be implemented just a little bit different. So hopefully you have a little bit of documentation on this API, and look into the paging part of it. Like for example, on QuickBooks, when I could send it, say like it has a customer quote table entity, right? And I could say select asterisk from customer start row equals 1, right? Or start row :1 or whatever it is that's the right syntax. And then max records and its max is 1,000, right? So I could say give me 1,000, because if I give nothing, the default's only 100. So I could say max records, and that's my actual like query syntax. And then the second time I come around, right, it's going to say start record is 1,001 because I've just got my records from 1 to 1,000. And again, max rows is 1,000. Third time, 2,001, right? And it's just going to loop through until I get whatever, the 20,000 customers.
Maybe this is something we talked on SML, but is there a drawback to overshooting that page variable and putting it higher than I know I have?
Well, some APIs won't give you everything. Like if you have 20,000 records, right, and you still ask for 20,000, its implementation says, nope, I'm only giving you 1,000 no matter what if you go higher than this number, I'm only giving you the max that my API allows.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And Fernando is calling out. He's only 51 degrees someplace. It was like 100 degrees yesterday where I was, so I'm a little jealous.
We're still hitting the 107s over here. Forecast for 106 today. So yeah, he's less than half of what I'm at.
We're 90 in Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
It's hot everywhere.
So Fernando, I don't know where you're coming from, but like,
can we visit?
Are you in the Arctic?
Yeah. Are you in the Arctic? So what else do we have to
Uh,
cover on Dataflows Gen 2? I think we've hit everything we were thinking we are going to talk about.
I think those are the big things. We did cover pipelines last week.
Mhm.
I think it's important to call out that you could use these pipelines, or you can use Dataflows Gen 2 inside pipelines, right?
Yes.
So you could kick off a pipeline to say, hey, go get me data through a gateway, which you don't currently that's a blocker, right? That
Mhm.
those gateways aren't working. So you could use that today to start to populate and bring data in, and then do other stuff on top of it with notebooks or the actual pipelines and continue it on from there, right?
Yeah,
So,
if you could share my screen one more time,
but just as
just
once.
this once. Next week I'm out of
Wait,
screen shares. And
wait, you're not
I'm not
sharing
sure.
your screen.
See, no,
That makes it very
your
hard.
answer is no, I can't. All right, let me set up my screen share again because I moved things around. So I think
All
what kind of
right.
got us started with this last week is Mim put out an article about his first look at Dataflow Gen 2. And he has a good write up here that talks about how he was trying to incrementally load some, I think, text files or something that comes to him in a zip file or something like that. And he was able to solve the problem with Fabric. And also, he started showing how it's performing better than when it started out. So there's definitely been some improvements here and now it's a whole lot faster. The other thing he has on here is this link here, which is to a YouTube channel, which is another MVP. And he has a pretty good tutorial on going through, and I believe because I watched it, yeah, he goes through a multi-step process of what he's going to do and how he connects this all together using pipelines, using a total end-to-end solution. So that's another good source. Um, Thank you, Donald. I was just about to copy that over. So yeah, take a look at this article as well, and then hit this YouTube video here to learn more on how people are using Dataflow Gen 2s and how they're stitching everything together with all of the different artifacts that you have from from Fabric. That was all I wanted to say.
Well, and honestly, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, we are in the beginning stages of this, so the amount of content out there around data flows is just not a ton. And as we can see, there's some kind of challenges in the authentication, in the loading of the DW, but other spaces, it's fantastic, right? Um, uh, loading into the lake house is great.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to load this data in, and let's say you've got a data mart, right, and you're loading it with Power queries, and you want to now start to load that into a lake house, you can use it. It's a copy paste activity, right? You just take those existing Power queries, dump it in, and you're up and running, and you're good to go. So
I
that's
think there's one
fantastic,
other
right?
thing that I remember seeing that none of us kind of put together here, but there is on the website. There's a Power Query template set up, and I think what you could actually do is download the JSON from your Dataflow Gen 1 and pretty much upload it directly into the Gen 2. So if you're not having to do these individual copy paste. And might have to look
Oh,
back into that. You just reminded me as you were talking about that. This was something that Alex, of course, the P in Alex Powers could stand for Power Query or Power BI, but we're going to say it's Power Query with him today. Maybe it's Python now. I don't know. That P goes so many different ways.
And
So.
patience.
And
yeah,
patience. Yeah.
patience. Yes,
Um,
yes.
but yeah, there is a way to actually, I think, bring everything up all at once. So you could do your migration from Gen 1 to Gen 2, download that JSON and bring it up as a template file. And I think you'll have every entity, every table that you have in that data flow then very
Boy, that
quickly.
would be interesting.
Sounds like something to maybe show at the beginning of next week to whatever topic. I don't know what we'll have next week yet.
We'll see. Or can I do? Yeah. We will see. That's a great point. A good way to wrap this up. We've really run through this. We've really kicked the tires on Dataflows Gen2. There's some really great things that Mark showed. Like, hey, you can do some things that are really hard to do any other way with these, and make that broadly and accessible. Especially now that you can put it into a lake house, and now you can, with like one lake viewer and file viewer, you can make backups of that, and there's a whole bunch of things that you get where now this starts to become closer and closer to a productionable process, especially as Fabric gets closer and closer to GA. You're going to be right there and ready to go. Are there challenges? Yeah, we kind of saw those, but it feels like most of the challenges are workable, other than the DW, but I'm sure Chris Finland and his team will sort that all out at some point in time. If you really want to, like, ping Chris Finland and let him know that, like, hey, what the heck is going on with Dataflows? I'm sure he would love to hear you. He is on Twitter. He is on LinkedIn. Chris Finland loves to get pinged about these types of things. He's super receptive to it, and I would highly encourage you to just like hit him up on things. So
I'm laughing because yes, he is, but also just sometimes his reactions are also very good too. So so make sure you tell him Chris sent you. Just so that so that he has a nice conversation with Chris later. So
that Kratos guy.
Yeah. Well, he has my phone number, and he's called me up a couple times with "What the hell, man?"
That's that's what I was thinking. So,
which is always fun to, like, hello, this is Chris. What the hell, man? Oh, hi. Who is this?
All right. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yes, we are. Well, hey, we are at 1675 is not super bad when it comes to raising money for Maui. I mean, just hitting back on that. Oops, I got on the wrong screen here. We are going to be donating all the money to the Maui Strong Foundation. Again, they are on site. They're actually on what island is it, Mark? I'm not.
Maui.
Maui. They're actually on Maui. They can, like, run you through and talk you, or they're actually there and they can help. They're helping people today. So, thank you very much for donating, and we'll make sure that the money gets to these people and help gets to them. All right.
Yes,
thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mark, thanks again for joining us.
Oh yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love this community, and I'm always excited to join the conversation. And this one was a little more meaningful, so thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Peace.
Right. Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.